Welcome to the Mindset Architect Podcast, where it's all about creating the life you want, the business you want, and making a real difference. Join us in unlocking the code to true success. And now your host, Tony Caliendo, Master Coach with Rethink Coaching.
Welcome to the Mindset Architect Podcast, episode number 147. I'm Tony Caliendo, author of Less Over More and executive coach here at Rethink Coaching. As always, thank you for sharing your time with me today. Time truly is our greatest asset, and the fact that you're willing to share your time with me truly does mean a great deal. Today, we're going to have a conversation around conversations. And what I have found and what I can share with you as I've moved forward in my careers and the different businesses that I've owned is that conversations really are the key to success and can be one of the key components of less over more. And I want to have a conversation around that just to create clarity for you, because what if the thing standing between you and greater clarity isn't another strategy, another goal, another breakthrough? What if it's a conversation that you've been avoiding? Here's what I know in my experience: some of the heaviest things that we carry are not the things that happened. They're the conversation we know we need to have, yet we haven't had it. And I think that is one of the best gifts that you can give to yourself, is to learn how to embrace the difficult conversations, learn how to have those conversations that you've been avoiding. Because what I know to be true is clarity is one of the key elements to living a life of less over more, to having a business built on the framework of less over more. And I want today to spend some time creating that clarity. I will admit this: earlier in my career and careers, I was really uncomfortable with having a conversation that went against what I thought would be a positive conversation. Like having a conversation with somebody about something that they did or didn't do, or that created a negative impact, was really difficult for me to have, because I felt like I was imposing my beliefs on someone else. The reality is, until I had that conversation and gained clarity, it hung over my head like a cloud. And every time I saw that person, every time I had an interaction with that person, especially if they were a part of my organization or someone I was doing business with outside of my organization, that conversation that wasn't had a tremendous impact on my overall success and living a life in a business that was more joyful, more balanced, and had less stress in it. So I want to talk about what not having a conversation really is. It's silence. And silence really is never neutral. It's just not. It is really an unspoken issue, becomes mental clutter. So even though you think, well, I haven't said anything, I've been silent about it, it's not making a difference, it is, because it's mental clutter in your head. It's almost like when you forgive someone, right? The saying is, you forgive someone, it's the best gift you can give to you, not to them. It really is the same thing about having a challenging conversation or a conversation that you deem as uncomfortable. As long as you avoid it and do not have it, it's causing mental clutter. You're carrying around the wrong more with you. It's the story that you do not need to carry with, because it's a one-sided story at this point. Every unresolved situation consumes your attention. So the conversation that you're avoiding having today often becomes the burden that you're going to carry with you tomorrow and the day after and the day after. And in the theme of less over more, when you're carrying a conversation or you're carrying mental clutter, you're giving your energy to the wrong more. Think about clearing that space up, right? You have the conversation, you come to an understanding, maybe you misunderstood, maybe it's not what they meant. Whatever it is, you're not carrying around that clutter. And once you release that, you're creating the space for really great things to show up. Because when we carry around the wrong more, we block the right more from coming into our lives. The second thing about conversations, right, gaining clarity and having those breakthroughs, is the stories we create in the absence of communication can be just that, a story. They may not be the truth. They may not be what the other person intended. They may not be at all what it was meant to be. When clarity is absent, the mind will create noise, and that noise is created through stories. We make assumptions, we make interpretations, we go to worst case scenarios, we create emotional stories that support our story, and all of that becomes unnecessary more. One of the most honest conversations that you can have can actually eliminate hours, days, or even years of unnecessary noise. I want you to think about that. I talk about this and it's in the book. We talk about the thought flow model, and I've talked about that. I believe it's episode 70 ish, where I talk about the thought flow model. What's amazing about how your brain works. So let's say you're carrying around an unresolved conversation, right? So you're carrying around all of that noise in your head. What your brain wants to do is create a story so it can understand the emotions that you're feeling or the impact that you think it's going to have. So it will work really, really hard on creating a story. Now, the story may or may not be true, yet it's your story. And as long as you carry that story around with you, it's impacting how you feel, your emotion, and your energy. It's impacting the actions that you take or will not take. It's impacting the results that you're going to get. So carrying around the wrong story is once again taking on the wrong more. Think about it. Again, you're holding on to stories that may or may not be true. They're taking up space for greatness. If we just have the conversation, we can release and reframe that story and eliminate any negative feeling, energy, emotion, start engaging in action in a different way, and ultimately get the better result that you're looking to get. Now, I know the reason why you don't want to have an uncomfortable conversation. It's not comfortable. I mean, it's that simple, right? It's not rocket science here. We avoid uncomfortable things because your brain views it as dangerous or risky and it wants to protect you. So it is going to, in my words, kind of seduce you away from having a uncomfortable conversation because we want to protect our own comfort. It's not necessarily the comfort of someone else. It's our own comfort. And again, the brain is doing this to protect you from doing something that it views as dangerous or risky. It's going to do a great job of convincing you that you don't need another conversation, while on the other hand, it's helping you create a story that is not supporting you as you move forward. Many people will choose this temporary comfort of avoiding a difficult conversation and end up with long-term complexity, right? You're just making the problem worse or the situation worse by avoiding having the conversation. The short-term discomfort of having a conversation is much more powerful than long-term carrying it around, right? The hard conversation today creates less stress tomorrow. So if you just handle the discomfort quickly and get it over with, you're not going to carry that junk around with you day after day after day. I can't stress this enough. I've had to have what I viewed as really uncomfortable conversations with people, both in my business and life. I think I've shared my life story with you. I was raised in a very conservative Catholic family, and they have different beliefs about the life that I live. And those uncomfortable conversations resulted in years of being disconnected from my family just because I wasn't willing to have the uncomfortable conversation. And here's what's really fascinating. I flipped the script and said it would make them uncomfortable. For many, many, many years, I believed that if I had a honest conversation or an uncomfortable conversation with my family or friends, it would make them uncomfortable. And I would never want to do that. At least that's the story I carried around in my head. And I think the really unfortunate thing is life has moved on in my world, and I've lost relatives, I've lost some friends, and I'm not able to have those conversations. And the reality is, the only one who was uncomfortable was me. As I've aged and I've gotten resources and tools on what to do to have these conversations and to stop creating the story that I'm going to make them uncomfortable, I've realized there's such an incredible gift in having the conversation that I viewed as uncomfortable. 9 times out of 10, the other person was running their own story about what was going on, about the missed opportunity, about whatever it is that happened. And I will tell you, the majority of the time, when you're dealing with people who are not dealing with other issues, they will tell you they are so grateful that you took the time to have the conversation with them. The story of uncomfortableness or making them uncomfortable is just you hiding behind something that you don't have to then take action on. I promise you, have the conversation. Have the conversation with the person. They will thank you for it. And chances are it's going to be a lot easier than you ever thought it was going to be. I know because I'm doing this more and more often in my world. I'm having the conversation because I do not want to carry around the noise with me. I don't. I know that doing that is carrying around the wrong more. And if I am going to live a life of less over more, I have to remove the wrong more from my life so I get to experience life at a whole different level. It's really the reason why I wrote the book, because I want everyone to understand that we're carrying around a lot of things that are the wrong more, the wrong things to give attention to, the wrong things to give energy to. And by doing that, you're blocking the space of greatness to show up. So, one of the things that we must do is get comfortable with uncomfortable conversations. If you're a leader, if you run an organization, I'm going to say this because I do, and I know that my difficult or uncomfortable conversations can change the trajectory of somebody's life. You have to get really comfortable knowing that you're having the conversation coming from a good place. You want to release the negative energy around it. You want to release that you're carrying around all this stuff around the conversation that you haven't had and allow the space for really amazing things to show up. I always talk about this, and I view uncomfortable conversations as an opportunity to express care and candor. I care about you enough to have an uncomfortable conversation. I care about you enough to bring this to our attention. That is a way that you can buffer what you view as an uncomfortable conversation. Use care and candor. And I do believe this. I learned this from an old mentor of mine. Before I have a difficult conversation, or even before I enter a coaching call with a client, I always think to myself, I love the person and my job is to help them. And part of that is the care. And then the part of helping them is the candor, being very honest about what's really happening. There is a cost of protecting your comfort. You're robbing somebody else of growth. You're robbing somebody else of their position in your world. You are taking away someone's opportunity to show up differently, and you're blocking it because you're carrying around the wrong more. You're carrying around the wrong story. The other thing that I want you to think about is having a conversation with yourself can sometimes be the most uncomfortable conversation you have to have. I mean, honestly, we are really good at avoiding having our own conversation with ourselves about what's not working or about what we could be doing differently. Before we can have an honest conversation with anyone else, we need to have one with ourselves first. And I always do this when I'm feeling a conflict or I'm feeling a disconnect or discord with somebody else. I go internal first. I want to have a conversation with myself first. Now, in my overall success, my overall journey to less over more and living a life in a business that's full of joy, that is lacking burnout, frustration, and anxiety, I have a lot of conversations with myself. And what some of the questions are that I ask myself in this conversation with me is, am I happy? Am I still aligned? Is what I'm doing or the actions I'm taking or the conversations that I'm going to have, are they still aligned with what's important to me? Am I chasing someone else's definition of success by avoiding the conversation? Am I living into somebody else's version of success versus challenging it? How and what am I pretending not to know? These are really powerful questions when you need to get in alignment with yourself. When you're feeling off kilter, when you feel like a difficult conversation needs to happen, I go internal first. And I really assess the entire situation first. And I have to start with the question of, am I happy? So if something is going on, I'm avoiding a conversation with someone, it simply could be because I'm not happy and it's me projecting my stuff on them. Number two, is it still aligned? Is the direction that I'm going still aligned? Because if it is, that conversation is really more important to have now than ever. If it's not aligned, a very different conversation needs to happen. We either need to have a conversation about getting into alignment or parting ways. It's really that simple. And number three thing that I ask myself is, by avoiding this conversation, am I leaning into someone else's definition of success? So have I chosen to abandon my own version of success and adopt somebody else's? And therefore, I don't want to have an uncomfortable conversation with them, because if I do, I'm going against the grain. I'm going against the perceived definition of success versus my own. That's probably one of the most powerful questions that you can ask yourself in getting back in alignment with less over more. Whose definition of success am I following? And am I avoiding the conversation because I don't want to question the industry, my peers, my parents, my mentors' definition of success? Most people, many people, don't need more answers. They just need more honesty. This is really important, to start with those honest conversations with you first. What I've gathered and learned, with age comes a lot of wisdom, is before I go into an uncomfortable conversation with someone else, I have to get real and get right with me. Because if I go into it with a charge, or I go into it with a story that I've created or a fear that I have, that conversation is not going to go well. And I'm going to continue to avoid it, or I'm going to blow up and it's not going to be effective. And I'll only add to the wrong story, the wrong things to carry around, the wrong opinion about that person, whatever it is. So the first thing I would say I would encourage you to do, after you embrace that you're not going to avoid having an uncomfortable conversation, is to have a conversation with yourself. The other thing is conversations that change everything. Less over more, my friends. Some conversations instantly remove years of pressure, years of carrying around a story, years of carrying around the wrong more. They help you with boundaries. They help you face a difficult truth. They help you make decisions. They may help you forgive in a way that you didn't know that you even had to. One conversation can remove enormous amounts of the wrong more. I know I've shared with you, I worked for a previous coaching company, and I carried around some stories about this that really weren't serving me. And it wasn't until I had conversations with the leadership that I understood that I was carrying around the wrong story and that I needed to let it go in order for me to be successful. But I also had the right to set some boundaries about how I showed up, because it needed to be in alignment with my values, my beliefs, and my version of success. The coolest thing was there was a feeling of forgiveness. Like, hey, I understand what your true intention was, and it isn't what I thought it was. Well, I didn't come out and say, I forgive you. It was a conversation, though, that it allowed me to have a better understanding and compassion for the direction of the leadership. And I was able to forgive the situation. I was able to let go of the charge that I had around it. Sometimes the conversation you're going to have that's difficult is the greatest form of subtraction. And remember, less is about subtraction, not about doing less. It's about subtracting the things that are deterring you from your version of success or your future. And a conversation can add incredible gift of subtraction, because you're letting go of the wrong more. It is really, really powerful to embrace that when you're having or about to have a challenging conversation. And the last thing I want to ask you is, what are you waiting for? The life you want may not require another strategy. It may just require one courageous conversation. And whether that conversation needs to happen with you or somebody in your organization or somebody that you interact with, a client, a customer, whatever that might be, that courageous conversation can be one decision, one truth, one boundary, one admission, one ask, or one no that gets you to the success that you need without implementing a do more type of strategy. I think it's the biggest gift you can give yourself is having that conversation now, getting it done, getting it over with, because imagine that it helps you make the right one decision. Imagine that it helps you face a difficult truth, that it helps you say no to things because you're saying it from a healthy place versus avoiding the conversation, allowing things to go on and on and on versus stopping it by simply saying no. The life you want in the business you want may not require you to do more through another strategy, like avoiding this and just go do more of something else. Attacking this one head on can be the strategy that you really need to work on. So difficult conversations aren't difficult. And in fact, I've chosen to remove the word difficult conversation in my life. I used it today for the purpose of this episode. It's a conversation. It's only difficult if we choose to label it that. Conversations are so healthy to have both with yourself and other people. So in closing, I want to remind you of a powerful book, Less Over More, that I have happened to write. And I would love for you to join me on the journey to learn things like this, to learn how to identify where in your life, in your business, might you be focused on the wrong more, taking on stories that are not true. I want you to really think about one of the biggest sources of the wrong more in our lives can be unresolved conversations. It's not just about schedules, commitments, and different strategies. It can be simply about unresolved conversations, the boundaries we haven't set, the truth that we haven't spoken, the conversations we've been postponing. Unresolved things take up space. It is a great example of the wrong more. When you're carrying around a bunch of unresolved things, you're blocking yourself from the right more to come in. One of the most powerful forms of subtraction is finally saying what needs to be said. You're removing obstacles. You're subtracting. You're creating the space. You're eliminating the wrong more. And honestly, it's a life that feels really, really good. I really do want you to consider conversations being a powerful resource on your journey to less over more. What conversation are you avoiding? What conversation, if you had it, could subtract negative thoughts, negative stories, the wrong noise that you're carrying around with you that would allow you to experience your relationship with somebody else in a different way, whether it's a peer, a family member, your spouse, a friend, whoever it is, have the conversation and clear the space for great things to come. All right, team, go make it a great week, and we'll talk to you soon. If you enjoyed listening to this podcast, you must come check out the Mindset Architect Group Coaching Program. It's our monthly program where we explore the power of your mindset, help you identify what you truly want in business and life, and then help you reach those goals. Come check us out at rethinkcoaching.com/group-program. That's rethinkcoaching.com/group-program. We'll see you there.